What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, some more crazy news going on today. I'm sure most of you have probably already heard by now, especially if you watch this channel. You would have seen Cody's reaction to this already. It's one of those situations where it just matches the type of year Indy is having, right? I mean, it is the kind of year where nothing ever seems to be going right. And of course, it just goes on even more. But in other news, Shaq Leonard has been officially released from the Indianapolis Colts. The former All Pro, best at his position, has had numerous frustrations with his role in the defense since coming back from his injury this year. And it has now reached a point where Indy has made a business decision to decide to just move on from it now. Cody, I want to ask you this first, without really going too much into it at the moment. The whole point of releasing him now rather than at the end of the year, that's going to be the whole thing that we're talking about. What's your reaction to them doing it now rather than waiting at the end of the year to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was surprised at the timing, considering, after the trade deadline, and it's just kind of like a weird thing right after the bye. But yeah, I mean, I think, Derek, it ultimately comes down to a couple different things for me. And I think this was kind of why maybe they didn't wait until, the season was over. I think number one, you got to look at, kind of what Shaq Leonard has said the last couple weeks, has gone to the media and has pretty much expressed his frustrations publicly and kind of aired that out. And I know I think it was Kevin Bowen or somebody that's close to the organization that said that didn't sit very well with the Colts, front office and some of their people, because it's literally just creating some drama and creating some stuff there. And so I think also just the poor play. I mean, we saw it on display, Derek, against the Patriots. He got more snaps and he didn't make the most of those opportunities. And, so it's kind of just like a very weird and odd situation for Leonard. And it seems like it's something that was not, at least according to people, it was not something where they mutually agreed to part ways. It wasn't like Shaq Leonard asked to be released or anything like that. It was the Colts' decision to make that. And so I think for those different reasons, that's kind of why the Colts decided to do it. And also, I think of this, Derek, giving more opportunities to some of those young linebackers that are sitting behind him right now. He was taking up some snaps from guys like EJ Speed, Segun Olubi, who's a rookie, even Grant Stewart, who's played a little bit, and I thought it's looked pretty well. So I think all those reasons kind of culminate. And then also maybe if you're like, all right, Shaq, if you're not happy, we'll give you the opportunity to go somewhere else and maybe get the snap counts that you're wanting as well. So I think all those things kind of factor in to why the Colts decided to make this release, although it still is kind of puzzling just how quickly it was and how out of the blue on a Tuesday afternoon the Colts decide to do this. They always make these moves at the weirdest times when you're not expecting it. And so, it seems like you just can't go a season, man, without something happening, some sort of drama, some sort of thing happening. But yeah, I think to answer your question, that's probably the reasons why the Colts elected to go now. They just didn't see the value of continuing to give Shaq snaps if he wasn't going to make the most of those opportunities. And we've said it before, Derek. We said it when we talked about this at the beginning of the bye week, right? Man, he's just not looked great. Shaq has just not looked great this year. He's probably been, we could honestly say, the third best linebacker on this team this year. EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin have both made more plays than Shaq has. And so that's just something. Also, you got to think, there is the injury as well. So how much of that had slowed him down? But that's kind of what my thoughts are just on the reasons why for the timing. Although it still is a little bit surprising. I think it pretty much took the whole world by storm when the Colts elected to do this today. And, it started with Shaq posting something and the news came out a few minutes after that. So just kind of odd timing, but I wasn't surprised necessarily that it happened, but I was surprised when it happened.
Yeah, I think the ultimate thing is the only reason you ultimately make a decision like this now versus at the end of the year is, you're trying to see where it could lead you in the end. sooner rather than later, because ultimately, like, and for the big thing was, as you said, when it comes to Shaq Leonard, I mean, the role that he had and everything else, you're right. It gives more people in that spot a chance to kind of fill that role. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we're not at this moment in time, and it pains me to say it, we're not a worse defense with Shaq Leonard being off the field. I mean, we've been talking about it the whole time. Like, EJ Speed should not be losing snaps to Shaq Leonard. It just shouldn't be, right? So, I mean, yeah, it's one of those situations where you're giving these other guys a chance. You already know what you are this year. You already know what your defense is this year. At the end of the day, you're making a business decision that, you know, you gave this guy a lot of money. You really hoped he would get back to what he was, and he just hasn't. And you know what? To no fault of his own. I mean, it's unfortunate. The injuries have taken its toll, and maybe also it has something to do with Gus Bradley's scheme, also not maybe really fitting the way that Shaq Leonard really plays his game. So maybe that might be a little bit different.
Well,
But
even with that, he's not the
yeah,
same
oh
that
no,
he was.
100%. Yeah, I think
No.
we're all in agreement that the biggest issue here is, just the simple fact of the matter that the injuries have just taken its toll, and he's just not quite the same guy athletically. And it really sucks to say that. I mean, Cody, you know me, I've been the biggest like Leonard guy ever. Like I went to bat with the dude. I went to at people's throats who suggested the idea that this guy would not play football again, would not be, a great player again, all of those things. I certainly hope that he goes to another team and, balls out. I really hope he does a phenomenal job wherever that ends up. And at the end of the day, I'm also going to sit here and say I'm not upset with the Colts doing this. Like you said, the timing of the situation, is what threw me off of this. I kind of was bracing myself more and more that this might end up becoming a thing. I just did not expect it to be a random Tuesday in the middle of week 12, something like that. So it'll be interesting, but it does save you a lot more money going into. I think Destin said that like it literally saves the Colts like $53 million over the next 3 years, releasing Shaq Leonard. So yeah, you lose a little bit of cap, but at the end of the day, like the amount of savings that you have to that you get from that, I mean, that can definitely be put towards keeping some other big names around and trying to sign some other big names in the off season. So it's a business decision, guys. At the end of the day, may love it, may not like it, but you have to do what you have to do for the future of the football team. And it just stinks that we're in this situation now.
It does. And, I have a couple different points. I think, talking about the timing to maybe try to piece this together a little bit. Look, you're coming off your bye week. It's pretty obvious at this point, or it was before this, even probably to the Colts, like Shaq's not a part of your future at linebacker. So, you give and see what you got at linebacker behind him. You get a more extended look at EJ Speed. You get more of an extended look at Segun Alubi. Like some of these guys that weren't getting the opportunities because Shaq Leonard was there and who could be a part of your future. And you have a lot of high hopes, especially for like EJ Speed. And he could be, that number 2 linebacker besides Zaire. And you could continue to give him more snaps and stuff like that. But also, I wanted to pull up Derek the Cap because you mentioned it, just so people are aware if they're curious. All right, how much did this save the Colts? How much do the Colts have to eat and stuff like that? So this is according to Over the Cap, and also shout out Kevin Hickey, Colts Wire. He had this all, so I'm taking this right from him. So be sure to go check out the article on Colts Wire. There's a plug there for Colts Wire. But according to Over the Cap, the Colts will take on $8 million in dead money due to the prioritated guaranteed money for the 2024-2025 season, $4 million in each season. So that makes sense. However, the only guaranteed money left on the contract beyond the 2023 season, that is it. His $15.7 million base salary in 2023 became fully guaranteed during the offseason. So the Colts are still on the hook for that over the remainder of the season. However, moving forward into 2024, 2025, and 2026, because he had 3 years left, 2024, the Colts saved $13.61 million, and he had a $2 million roster bonus and a $510,000 total per game roster bonuses. 2025, he was owed $14.84 million in base salary, $4.2 million roster bonuses, and 2026, $19.9 million with a base salary of $510,000. So, Derek, you are saving a ton of money, and I believe if I saw some kind of estimations after this move, I think the Colts will have somewhere around $90 million in cap room because of this move. And so you talked about it. This is the opportunity you get to bring back Michael Pittman Jr., to bring back Julian Blackmon, bring back Kenny Moore, bring back some of these key pieces that have played good football for you this year, because you don't want to pay guys that aren't living up to their contracts or anywhere close to that. So pay the guys that are balling out, that are key cogs in your defense moving forward. And the Colts have the opportunity now to do that. And Derek, it gives you a great opportunity. And again, we'll get into it as the season kind of winds down. You look at free agency, there potentially could be a splash opportunity for the Colts at one of those position groups. Maybe they're still kind of lacking. And I don't know, again, I'm just initially thinking pass catcher of some sort or edge rusher of some sort. Those are the two things that come to mind immediately. But again, we have to look at that. That's still a long ways off. But yeah, it gives you a great opportunity here, Derek, with Shaq Leonard, being released. You give him an opportunity to go elsewhere. You save a ton of money. Yeah, you have to eat a little bit, but now you get to see what you have at linebacker. And also you get to pay some of these guys that have been those homegrown talents that have balled out this year and have been some of your top players on the offensive defensive side of things. So I think that makes a ton of sense for the Colts to do that. One thing I wanted to talk about, Derek, and I made a post about it on X or Twitter. I don't know, man. I keep going back and forth on what I want to call it. But anyway, and I want to get your opinion on this one, okay? So for me, Derek, I feel like the biggest issue for the Indianapolis Colts over the last 5 to 10 years has been accountability, right? It's been accountability, and not just talking accountability, because the Colts have talked a big game in accountability, but it's the action of accountability. I mean, Derek, we've seen different times, and I know the first thing that comes to mind for me, the Adam Vinatieri situation in 2019. I mean, how many field goals did that guy have to miss? It was like historically bad till the Colts made a change, And like different players that we've seen throughout the years who have clearly been liabilities on this team, but previous coaching staff wouldn't make the move that was necessary. When there were clearly either better players available or you couldn't get much worse than you already had. Why not give other guys opportunities? We saw that where different guys were kept on the field for very ridiculous reasons. And I think it comes down to that lack of accountability. And so, well, yeah, from the fandom side of things, we saw Shaq Leonard be drafted. We watched his ascension to be one of the top backers in the NFL. We've interacted with him on social media. Like, we love Shaq Leonard. But here's what I'll say, Derek. You look at what Shane Steichen's already done this year in setting the culture. Week number 1, Deion Jackson has one of the worst games of running back I've ever seen in my life. And what happens? He gets cut the next week, And then Darrell Baker gets absolutely torched by Nico Collins. What do the Colts do? They bench Darrell Baker. They go and they activate Juju Brents. And, so, and you see other things as well. Tony Brown not getting more opportunities after that Saints game. Like, different things. And I think the Shaq Leonard thing, while it is obviously a lot more of a notable name than some of these other guys, for me, Derek, that's been the biggest problem with the Colts is they overvalue the player based off of, they're a good person. Shaq's out in the community, which also obviously awesome, amazing. We love that Shaq's out in the community. We love that our players are out in the community. We hope they would do that. But they let the nostalgia of them being a good person, Derek, and it doesn't correlate sometimes with being an effective player when it comes to being on the field. And Shaq, obviously, this is new for him, but we've seen that with different guys where the Colts would rather get good guys in the locker room, which is not a bad thing. You want high character guys over some talented guys. And Shane Steichen, it's very obvious this guy's a competitive son of a gun. Like, he wants to win, and he doesn't really care whose toes he has to step on to make that happen. So the accountability, Derek, I personally think, and I'm going to finish my rant, I promise. I'm almost done. But I personally think that is the biggest reason why we saw the regression the last couple of years from some of your top players. That's why we saw, guys like Kenny Moore fall off last year. Obviously, he was dealing with some stuff as well. That's why, Michael Pittman wasn't playing up to his standard, and he's having a bounce back year. Like different players weren't playing to the standard we knew that they could play because there was a lack of accountability. And when you preach accountability and you don't practice accountability, Derek, I know, and you probably know this as well, being a former player. Like if you say that and you don't actually practice that, I'm going to tune you out pretty quickly because it's obvious that you don't truly believe that. It's obvious you're not truly about that. You just say it's just coach speak at that point, And so I think, honestly, that was the biggest undoing for Frank Reich. I really do think that was because he's a tremendous guy, tremendous individual, but the accountability was not there when it needed to be there. Derek, I can't even remember one time where the Colts actively, after a player struggled or whatever, or just was clearly the liability. I can't remember a time where Frank Reich Company made the change when they needed to make it. And that's just the biggest stark difference for me is Shane Steichen will walk the walk or talk the talk about accountability, but he's also going to walk the walk. And this is what it looks like. When a player is not living up to the standard that you have set, it doesn't matter what he's done in the past. It doesn't matter if he's a four-time All-Pro, the former, rookie NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, all that stuff. It doesn't matter if he's not performing up to that contract. At the end of the day, Derek, the NFL is a business first and foremost. So there we go. Rant over. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm kind of zoning out a little bit because
you're good.
Yeah,
I talked for a while.
The news is starting to hit me a little bit more the more I start talking about it, the more like stuff I'm looking on at Twitter right now. Yeah, I mean, the NFL is a business of what have you done for me lately? And clearly that's just not something that's been able to, work in Shaq's favor. Again, being paid $19 million a year and to be the third linebacker is just, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And it's an unfortunate reality. I mean, at the end of the day, Shaq's getting paid all this money. He's set. He's fine. His family's going to be fine. He's done a lot of great things, and he's going to continue to do great things. Obviously, he was having his turkey event that he had going on, and a bunch of other players there as well with him. It just stinks for me. I'm just trying to stay focused on this because, I mean, I can think back to all the amazing moments that we have had with Shaq on this team before the injuries took over, man. I mean, just going back, I mean, remember, Cody, the famous punch out that he had against the Texans back in 2020, when you and I first started doing live streaming for the first time, and we were doing those live play-by-plays, and you and I were on it for the first time together, and you and I got to witness Shaq like single-handedly win us the game at the end there, and all these other things. And we remember the interception he had 2 years ago that, before the end of the half against the Patriots in the game that the Colts won, right? And all these different memories that you have of just such a special player. And I said it on the AFC South roundtable that I was on before we came on here. There is this guy will go down, Cody, as maybe besides Andrew Luck, maybe the biggest what if in the history of the entire Colts franchise. Because I mentioned this, in his first 4 seasons, he was doing things that no other linebacker had done before. Like, he is a special upon special type of player, or rather was, before obviously what we're dealing with now. But he was putting up numbers that the GOATs of football could only dream of being able to do to impact their team. And that's why this hurts so much, from the perspective of losing out on what could have probably and most likely would have been the best player at his position, maybe not just in franchise history, but in all of NFL history, was the direction that this guy was heading in before, what we have now. Um, but again, like you said, it was, and I think that the Colts, while some people may deem it as, some people may deem it as the Colts being harsh. I honestly think the Colts thought this might be the better thing for Leonard. Uh,
Mhm.
Move on now. Like, hey, maybe a team will pick up that contract for you. Maybe you'll end up in a situation that's better for you. Because we know where you stand with us now, and like we don't want to do that to you and continue to have you feel as if you're not part of this game plan. So go find it somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
go be something somewhere else in a situation that better fits you. Because like you said, Cody, the accountability thing, as harsh as that sounds, that is the ultimate truth. Is it's about the accountability. And
Mm.
even if the feelings are not mutual, at the end of the day, the feeling aspect of it has to be put to the side for the better of the football team long term.
Accountability has to be there, Derek, because if you let this fly, you let this slip, you continue to pay him the amount of money you're paying him, and he's not producing on the field. As hard as that is, and as harsh as some people may think that is, that's business, man. If you or I are working at a job and we are not performing the tasks that we are asked to do, for that said job, like the same thing's gonna happen. If it's an accountability, if it's a culture that preaches that and practices that, so with anything, like, you just it's harsh, but it's reality, unfortunately. And Derek, as great as Leonard has been, I do think there is kind of this disconnect for him. I don't think he fully realizes that he's not the same player he was. I don't think he does, Derek, because I think he thinks he's prime Shaq Leonard, and we know for a fact he's just not there anymore. And as hard as that is to see that, because he wants to be out there making plays, like he's not doing that on purpose. But at the end of the day, like that's just where he is. He's not the same player he was. And to be frank with you, like there's other players who have outperformed him in the linebacker room. I mean, there are. And I've seen different people who have said, well, what happens if one of your linebackers, goes down with injury? Derek, I mean, at this point with how he's playing, I'd rather give it to a young guy who's not costing you 15 to 20 million per year. Like I'd rather do that. And it's hard. And I know it's definitely difficult, with the memories and what he did for this organization and really helped the Colts win so many football games. It's hard to see that become a reality, but unfortunately that is what it is. And, unfortunately with the amount that he was owed, I mean, even with people saying, well, why didn't you trade him if you were just going to do this? Derek, nobody's going to take on that contract. Let's be completely real. Like nobody's touching that contract, And so I think nobody will try to claim him because of that contract, or I'd be very surprised if a team did that. And I think that, a team will sign him after he clears waivers, and he won't be getting that much. It'll be a very much a prove it deal for Shaq Leonard. And so as hard as that is for some people to grasp and to come to terms with, I just think that's where we're at, Derek, with Shaq Leonard. I think that's where the Colts were. And, the comments certainly didn't help. And, just like even the comment that he made to Stephen Holder was just kind of odd to me because, he was talking about, obviously being surprised and stuff. But then he made the comment about being willing to take a back seat. And I'm like, hang on. Isn't this the same guy that the last 2 weeks has publicly come out and complained to the media about his lack of snaps? So something for me just doesn't correlate there, man. I don't really understand, saying that to Holder or to whoever, saying that because it's clear that you weren't willing to take a back seat like you said you were. I don't know. That was just struck me as a very odd statement for Leonard to make, after everything kind of happened there.
Yep. I mean, you're right. It certainly is a situation where, at the end of the day, it was a dude that I think, it was in a situation where I don't think he wanted to accept what was going on. And I have said before, I don't think he should. You know, at the end of the day, he's Shaq Leonard. He's allowed to feel how he wants to feel. All of this, I mean, like we
Sure, but
said,
isn't there a
it
point of being
certainly.
realistic, though? Like, isn't there a point that he needs to be realistic about where he's at? He's not the all-pro linebacker he was. Like, he's just not. He hasn't played that way. And so, like, I get it, having confidence in oneself. Oh, for sure. Like, he carries himself with so much swagger. I guess I'm just like, at some point, he's got to get realistic that he's not going to get paid $15 million anytime soon. Like, that's just what I'm saying.
I understand, it is a situation where you talked about. Uh, he has definitely contradicted himself. You know, it was one of those things where, like, man, if you would have taken a back road to it, then I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if that would have saved Shaq Leonard in this situation. I don't know if it would have, because at the end of the day, I mean, you're still paying him $19 million. So
Right.
I mean, like, you know, that doesn't help much. The only way that would have worked for you is if you'd have been like, "Hey, I'm taking half my money away to be this third stringer," and I don't think that's exactly what he wanted to do. So, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, he's gonna get his money. I mean, he's got his guaranteed money, which is great. Um, you know, he's gonna be fine. He's a great dude, and you know, it stinks that I'm even here. I hate talking about this, man. I knew it was coming at some point, but it's just one of those things where, like, I hate talking about this. I really do, because I have nothing but great memories of Shaq Leonard, and just to have to see this happen again, it just sucks, man. It hurts me as a Colts fan to just have to deal with this right now, you know, because, like, it feels like every year we just have something happen that just keeps piling down on us, and it really sucks.
Yeah. It's unfortunate with to see Shaq because I mean we all if you follow this podcast, you know we were so much like hoping that Shaq would get back and we were looking forward to when he was on the field. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been the same linebacker that we were used to. And so at the time, Derek, the contract made sense for the Colts because, you know, you think about what Leonard was doing at that point. He was an all-pro player. He was making all these crazy plays. I think that was after the 2020 season, if I'm not mistaken, that they extended him. And, you know, and then just from there, you know, he had one more year where he was really good. And then it's just kind of been down the crapper since then because of the injuries and stuff. So definitely sucks for him. But I think this is the right move for the Colts to make here. And it's just very kind of like we expected kind of this separation of the Colts and Leonard, but we didn't expect it this soon. So it definitely hits differently knowing that we're not going to see 53 out there anymore for the Colts. It's definitely a bummer, but you know, taking the emotion out of it, and makes sense for the Colts to make this move. And we're excited for the future with this team and now the potential cap space that they will have because of this move. And I think will allow them to, you know, be able to bring back some of their own, sign some outside guys, and continue to build around Anthony Richardson. So, guys, that'll do it for this one. Let us know your thoughts overall on the Shaq Leonard release from the Indianapolis Colts. Do you agree the Colts should have made this move? Were you as surprised as Derek and myself that the Colts made this move as early as they did in season? Let us know all those things in the comments below. That'll do it for this one, guys. If you are new to the channel or if you've been watching it for a while, do us a huge favor. Smash that like button, turn on the notification bell, all that stuff. Hit subscribe, all that stuff. And be sure to get in the loop and stay in the loop when we drop new content just like this. But that will do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.